All right, well, today we're missing Elliott, so this is going to be an interesting podcast. First of all, it's just myself and Ryan. Welcome to Bourbon Sauced, where we discuss topics and get sauced on bourbon in the process. We will try and keep it PG, but no promises, as we always try and stay true to ourselves and be as unfiltered and blunt as possible. Grab your favorite bourbon and join us as the show begins. Before we get into it, go ahead, Ryan. Tell us what you're sipping on.
Well, I started out with a little Bird Dog small batch, 7-year, and it looks like I was a little low on that bottle. So when I finish that off, I think I'm going to have to break open this Leatherwood Snake Eater's Bourbon.
Oh, that should be an interesting profile switch. Myself, I'm starting off with a Basil Hayden 10-year. So we'll see how much I kill in this bottle. It's already halfway done, so it should be good. Today's topic, we're going to talk about cars and some of our first experiences and lessons learned along the way of automotive ownership. Let's discuss. What do you want to talk about here? You want to talk about your first car?
Yeah, I think we can go kick it off with our first cars. I mean, my first car was a 68 Buick Skylark. I picked it up for $500 from this old lady in Corbin, smoking like a freight train, drove her home, happy as a lark. Done the whole breakdown, saved my money all summer. Had my cousin help rebuild the engine, got it running good, lean, mean Buick Skylark. I mean, 68. So you're talking Buick's Chevelle. So
yeah, that was one of those big body Buicks.
Yes, sleek. Yeah. Had the fastback. So nice. Very sleek 2-door. But it had Buick's twist to it. So it had all the chrome trim and all that. Like I like to call the grandpa vehicles. Just too much chrome, too much. So stripped all the chrome off, had it all nice and primered. She was ready for paint, had this beautiful envision in my mind. Fast forward, I leave for the Army, come back from AIT, car's gone.
What do you mean gone?
Poof, vanished. So lo and behold, I guess at the time, my stepdad didn't think it was coming back. He sold it to 5 guys that drove down from Louisville in a little Honda. And then
Five guys. Not like 5 Guys the burger joint, but 5 Guys just in general.
Hey, and I don't know what to tell you there, but 5 guys in a little Honda drove down. They used the Skylark to tow their Honda back to Louisville. In my mind, why don't you just split driving and, a few in one vehicle and a few in another? No, they literally tow barred it all up and towed their own.
That is some Kentucky stuff right there.
You're telling me.
That's pretty good.
What about you? What was your first?
So, my folks, we weren't well-to-do in my younger years. So I ended up with an inherited 1988 Pontiac Grand Am. It was rusted out. Anytime it was wet outside, driving around in the rain, it would backfire. At one point, it started getting wet carpet, so I ended up peeling all the carpet up because it smelled like rotten carpet. And there was literally a hole in the floorboard beneath where my pedals were. So I had to, I bought a piece of sheet metal from the store, and I got some silicone, and I basically just made do with that. So I wasn't Flintstoning that thing, but, it was an interesting car. 2-door, all cloth interior, smelled like smoke because my mom was a smoker. So, it was definitely a used vehicle.
Wait a minute. We're saying you had the 88 Pontiac Grand Am sports edition kind of thing going on here, because you were like the poor man smoker.
I lost you there for a while.
You're almost like the poor man Smokey and the Bandit there.
Yeah, it really was. It you know, that the Grand Am came out and it was like, I don't know. I think they wanted to have like a sporty looking sedan, um, something to kind of compete with the mid-level Hondas, like the Honda Accords and stuff like that were going on at the time. But good God, man, this thing was just, it was not a very good car. But as the first car goes, you know, 16 years old, you're like, hey, I got wheels, so have wheels will travel, which was kind of a nice thing. Which, you know, hell, that leads us into, you know, dating while you had these junkers, right? My I was 16 years old. I was dating this girl. She was a year younger than me, and I mean, I used to just pick her up, take her on all kinds of dates. You know, we do the typical teenage stuff, go parking somewhere and make out, and you know, that's where I ended up getting the deed done for the first time. Classic teenager in the back of a car, you're getting it on, and next thing you know, you hear a little rapping on the window, and you look up and it's a cop, and you're like, oh boy. So, needless to say, my first experience in my car with a girl didn't go as planned, but it was still an interesting first for me.
Oh, I'm totally going to hillbilly it up for you. So, you know, first car didn't make it. So I spent more time on horseback riding around doing things than anything. So, you know, if I took a date anywhere, it was via a horse through the trails in the mountains, you know, or somebody had to drive and drop me off, you know. So the whole vehicle thing, nice in theory on my end, but nope, my first rope-a-dope was via horseback on trails.
Did you actually do it on the horse, or were you guys dismounted in the woods somewhere?
Kind of had, you know, nowadays I would have thought about the, you know, seeing how well that would have worked on the horse, you know, with the whole, especially if you got the, you know, do the work for you, the whole nine. But ultimately, you know,
So basically what you're saying, you told her to grab the horn and she grabbed the horn.
Right.
Yeah.
Basically, you know, at 15 years old, what do? You know,
right.
You don't, you're not that advanced in this world at that point.
Yeah.
So you dehorse and you throw down a blanket.
That's great. Yeah. They're basically doing Western style out in the woods.
Absolutely.
Like, hey, come on, girl, we're going to go on this horseback ride. And little does she know you're about to lay down in the middle of the woods somewhere. That's
or maybe she knew the plan all along.
Maybe she did. You never know.
You know, she was
girls that ride
17,
horses.
15, so
that's always dangerous when you get involved with girls that ride horses. You know,
right.
You might get bucked off.
Nowadays, you kind of want to strap on spurs and just try and hold on for 8 seconds, jump off, throw your hat.
Right. You do the rodeo and just say, hey, you know, your sister's better than you. See how long you can hold on.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Spur that bull out of the chutes. Here we go.
Yeah. Why not? Yeah, might as well. Let's talk about your first time you had like a breakdown. Was this with the Skylark or the...
No, so we fast forward, right? Uh-huh. So I'm in the Army, I'm in AIT. Well, prior to AIT, my dad and my grandparents, they chipped in and they bought me a 82 Toyota pickup. Okay.
Oh, nice.
Not a Tacoma, not a Tundra, a Yoda pickup. Okay. So we're talking solid front end, like indestructible front end. Like I had people offer me more for just the front end, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do with the truck? Just leave it. I don't care what you do with the truck. So it was like a metallic blue. It had the camper shell on the back, right? All matching paint. Well, here's where it gets interesting. So the previous owner had installed bucket seats. Not bad, right? Mm-hmm. They were not meant for this vehicle, so they were rigged up with 2x4s and different stuff. But the cool feature was the camper shell and the back glass of the truck, the front camper shell glass and the back truck glass had been removed, and a gasket had been put in to seal it back so you could climb back and forth.
You could climb from your inside the cab to the bed of the truck.
Yes.
That's interesting. So,
So not
I
only
cannot
this,
imagine where this is going.
but the walls of the truck, the bed of the truck is lined with like a carpet.
Sounds
Okay.
lovely.
He's gone and in the previous owner has gone and installed 4 speakers into the bed wall. And then you get a nice sound system. I mean, I upgraded the speakers obviously because he put in just generic stuff. But the carpet walls was interesting, you know. So I went ahead and we rhino linered the bed, rhino lined the cab floors. Like this thing's on 38 super swampers. I mean, you sit under it and change the oil. There ain't no laying down. You just sit under it. So, and it's a stick shift.
Mm.
So first breakdown, I leave AIT. I'm driving Fort Campbell. Well, I take leave or a 4-day pass. I go up to Virginia, truck back. I get just outside of Bristol, Tennessee. I'm halfway back and gone. Smoking. I've lost oil pressure, the whole shebang. I limp it into a hotel and have to spend the night in a hotel.
Mm.
And we're not even talking about a nice hotel. We're talking desperation motel, right?
One of those places where it's some seedy joint that people pay by the hour.
Kind of, but this is one of those where you don't know if they pay by the hour or if it's going to be a Hills Have Eyes moment and you're just going to be kidnapped from your bed in your sleep.
Basically,
right?
You needed a shot of penicillin when you left the place.
Yeah. Good idea. Take the movie No Vacancy and combined it with The Hills Have Eyes because it's more hillbilly-ish. And you would have a good understanding of where I was staying. I mean, there was probably cameras in the rooms if they had cameras. I would think because as hillbilly-ish it was, there were probably just holes in the walls, in the paintings, and they were watching you, kind of thing.
Like some Addams Family stuff,
Exactly.
where you see the eyes shifting in the painting.
Exactly. So I have to spend the night and ended up having to have my mom and them drive down and pick me up and drive me to Fort Campbell. The truck gets towed to a lot and is stored. That's my first breakdown.
That's pretty incredible. You end up staying at some Roach Moach hotel.
And then had to be driven back to Fort Campbell with no to go get said vehicle.
Yeah. All right. Well, for me, my first breakdown actually wasn't even in my own car. At the time, I was dating this girl, and she had like an older. It was like a '70 Malibu or somewhere in that decade, and we went for a road trip to go see her dad, who was like in Marion, Ohio, or something. I think it was, and it was like a good 2, maybe 3 hour drive from where we were at. And we were on the way back from seeing her dad, and I wasn't dogging it at all. We're just on the highway, and I was going probably 65, 70 miles an hour, and all of a sudden it's just I hear a loud bang and lose all acceleration, and oil just starts pissing up the front of the windshield, and I'm like, oh, this is not good.
Sounds like a woman I knew one time.
Oh, yeah, right. And so I'm just like, all right, let me just pull over. Maybe we just, maybe the top of the oil came off or something. And I was just hoping for the best. As soon as I get out there, I get to see this stream of oil behind the car. And I'm like, oh, no, this is not good. And I look under the car, and there is a piston rod sticking through the engine block, dragging. And I'm like, oh, fuck.
I'm just saying, there was smoke and there was a loud bang. What best is there to hope for?
Well, when you're a young driver and you have no idea mechanically what's going on, because I was pretty inept back then. I'm going to be honest. I wasn't exactly a mechanic back then. So my parents were, which is the ironic part. So
the mad genius developed later.
Yeah, exactly. So I called my dad, and I'm like, hey, I'm about an hour and a half out from home, and I need you to come pick me up. He said, what do you mean I need you? You need me to pick you up? Did you like get left somewhere. Like he's thinking like this girl broke up with me and she just ditched me, because it's probable. I mean, I was pretty much a little jerk back then. I didn't really do the best, but I was like, no, worse. The engine has one of the rods stuck right through it, and he's like, oh yeah, you're screwed. So I was like, yeah, thanks, I appreciate that. Can you come get me? So, by the time he gets there, it's probably, I don't know, 10 o'clock at night, and he's annoyed with me because he has to drive to come pick me up, and I'm like, what did you expect? I was like, I can't get a cab out here. I'm in the middle of nowhere. Like, we were in between middle of nowhere, Ohio, and like Cleveland, Ohio. So there was no gas station, there was no on ramp, no off ramp. It was just middle of fucking nowhere. So luckily, I had a cell phone back then. It was one of those old school like flip phones.
You had a flip?
Oh yeah, I had one of those flip
Jesus,
phones from way back.
I inherited like the brick for my first cell phone. Like off the movie Clueless.
Oh yeah,
my giant brick.
My dad had one of those like back when the first car phones were out there. Because he was like a traveling salesman, so he had one of those like giant phones that took up the armrest.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, that was the first breakdown, and so I had to explain to her dad what had happened to the engine, and he was like, "You were out there dogging it, weren't you?" I was like, "No," and like even his daughter was like, "No, Dad, he was just driving normal, and all of a sudden, he's like, that doesn't just happen like that." I was like, "It did." I don't know what to tell you, bud, but yeah, it was interesting for a first breakdown. Not even my own car; it was my girlfriend's car at the time. So.
I'm just saying, maybe you should have took the poor man's Smokey and the Bandit car.
Yeah, I just didn't have confidence that car was going to make it. Back then, that Grand Am that I had, I was just like, there's no way this thing's going to make that trip. I trusted that old 70 Chevy to do better than that poor man's Cadillac.
As much as I like Chevys, that just goes to show you can't trust a Chevy sometimes.
Oh, man, I'll tell you what, I've had some doozies with cars, especially lately, as you know. I mean, my truck has been in a shop for one thing or another, and it's a Chevy.
And it's brand new.
And it is brand new. And I've just had problems after problems. Just the mechanical woes in my life is just ongoing.
I'm right there with you.
No.
We're talking a GMC that's been in the shop for 6 months, waiting on an ECM. ECM gets here, and now we're 2 weeks. Tell me it's done. I got an 03 Chevy that thing is, I don't even know what you'd say about rusty. That thing's damn near bulletproof.
Now,
it has an issue here or it has an issue there. You fix that issue and it's like, it's almost like, what's that movie? Oh my God. What is that movie? About the car. Christine, yeah. Rusty's kind of like the male version of Christine. It's like,
we just call it Chris.
You just kind of do a little bit of stuff for it, and then it like gives you 100 more miles, right?
Yeah.
So I can't complain with it, but ultimately at some point I feel like it's just going to turn to powder, and just one of these days the wind's going to blow it away from under me, and I'm going to be sitting on a chair holding the steering wheel.
Its nickname's Rusty, so at some point the floorboards are just going to fall out, or the engine's going to fall out from the motor mounts failing. Which that would be interesting if you're driving down the highway, all of a sudden your motor just boom, falls down.
I got a feeling, that would be slight of a speed bump. I would kind of notice that, but the hole in the floorboard wouldn't be that bad of an ordeal. Because think about it, long road trips, you just kind of, there's a hole. Now I can piss. I ain't got to stop for nothing.
There's that. Yeah, unless it's raining, and then the road wetness is coming up on you. So it's
that's the wrong kind of wet for me. So
right?
Yeah, I'm good there.
Speaking of funny stories, man, I've got a bunch just involving my teenage years of driving and stuff. But like there's this one time I was driving in winter. Me and my buddies, we used to do this thing on the weekends. We'd be bored, and we decided we were going to go to Toys R Us back when Toys R Us was a thing. And we would just grab the football and throw it around the aisles and stuff, and just to kill time and see how long it took before we would get kicked out of a store. Um, so here we are driving in wintertime in Northeast Ohio. Roads are slick, snowy, and we're, I don't know, probably going like 40 miles an hour. And we're getting to go into the turning lane, and I hit a patch of ice. And as you can imagine, there's not much traction when you hit ice. So this car is doing donuts in the middle of a 4-lane road, and I see a semi coming. And as soon as the car straightens out, the semi goes flying right past us. And I mean, like inches from smashing us into oblivion. So we all do like the typical pat yourself down, like, oh, yep, I'm all here. Everything's good. You know, everybody safe. Yeah. All right. Cool. Are we still going to Toys R Us? Yep. you know, so yeah, it was an interesting time for that one.
So what you're saying is the director or writer for Final Destination drove by, saw this, and that became like part of the groundwork for their movie.
It had to have, like, somebody had to have seen that, because this was definitely before that even
See,
came
you
out.
just inspired that movie.
Yeah.
I feel right.
I feel like there's a lot of things in my life that probably could inspire movies.
Right.
Jackass. I think Jackass was based on my childhood, but
I could see that. I could see that.
Man, there's a lot of them that are out there, but
I have an alibi. Alibi.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I have an alibi. So my first breakdown was not then. It just dawned on me. So same vehicle, like had it for maybe a month, and I'm driving through Virginia, and I have to pull over, right? Like I'm not going anywhere anymore, so I have to coast off the shoulder, right? Well, I'm like, 19 years old. I'm like, what's going on? I'm not going anywhere. And I heard this clank sound and drug something, so I get up under this truck. Well, wouldn't you know, the ass end of the drive shaft just decides it's going to uncouple itself and drop to the ground. So here I am trying to figure out how I'm going to handle this. And at this point, 18, 19 years old, I have upgraded to one of them fancy dancy flip phones, by the way. Right. So I call my dad.
Calling Dick Tracy.
Right. So dad has to drive, it's not like a far drive, but he has to drive out and get me. And long story short, basically what it boils down to is certain things are meant to be grade A bolts, not grade B, grade C, grade whatever. If it ain't grade A and you're putting it in a high usage area, you're dumb. You're just dumb.
Oh, so, yeah, it's just going to shear right in half.
Exactly. So that's what happened. So they all sheared out, and my drive shaft dropped out.
That's a good lesson for those of you out there that decide they want to be driveway mechanics, and you're just like, I'll just go down Walmart and pick up some bolts. It's just a bolt's a bolt, right?
Mm-hmm. And I will say this too. Dad brought out a torque wrench and made sure that we torqued to spec. Another key thing, certain bolts have torque spec. And make sure you're torquing to that spec. Don't over torque and don't under torque. Torque to the spec.
Yeah, that's important. And I think a lot of people that aren't mechanically inclined don't really understand that part of, torque specs. There's everything has a reason for being done the way it's done. And the torquing, man, that's so important, because if you under torque it or over torque it, you can either shear it, or it'll shear itself, or it'll back itself off. Next thing you know, you're like your lug nuts on your tire. A lot of people don't torque those, and they're just like, just good and tight. I'm like, man, you're risking driving down the road and losing a tire, which takes me to a point. Me and my buddy, we were driving back from Ohio. We went on leave, and I had him come. He had a truck. I had him come up to grab some stuff from my parents' house to, and to bring back to North Carolina where I was stationed. And as we're driving back through the fucking mountains of West Virginia, all of a sudden we feel this weird shimmy going on from the front end. And I was like, oh man, I hope that's not like a tie rod or something. So we pull over, we look, and we don't see anything obvious. We're like, all right. Well, I call my dad, 'cause, again, my dad was a mechanic for years. So I'm like, hey dad, this is what's going on. We'll walk him through the symptoms and everything else. And he's like, He's like, well, it could be a wheel bearing. It could be this, it could be that. He's like, is the tire did the weights fall off the tire? Is it just at speed? Is it this? And I was just like, no. And then all of a sudden I was like, hold on a second, Dad. And he's like, what? And I was like, we just lost the tire. And I'm just calm and collect as I can when I said that. And he's like, wait, what? What do you mean you lost the tire? I was like, yep. Oh, hold on. We're on the rotor now. Let me call you back. So I hang up the phone and the tire just flies down this highway about, I don't know, 200 yards at least. And I look over at my buddy. His name was Chuck at the time. I was like, Chuck, did you just recently change that tire? He's like, yeah, I had to get it patched not too long. I was like, did you torque it? He was like, I was like, you son of a. So here we are in the middle of West Virginia, nowhere. So I have to find us a way to get towed. And it's, I don't know, probably 8:00 at night. So we end up bedding down at some Roach Moach hotel, just like you had to do when you had to break down. And we ended up getting a rental car, leaving everything that was in the bed of his truck in his truck, left his truck somewhere in West Virginia to get fixed. They had to replace the rotor, the brake, the lines to the brake, because somehow the heat made the lines burst, and a new hub and a new tire. And that was
Hold up. Wait a minute. The heat made the metal brake line burst?
Yeah, I guess from like when it hit, it was either the heat or the friction from something that caused it to shear off. I'm not really sure.
The metal brake line that ties into the caliper.
Yep. Yeah. I don't know what happened.
I feel like right there. How old were y'all then?
Yeah, we were probably 23, 24 or something like that. I don't know.
Not saying that crazy things don't happen, but I kind of feel like backwoods mechanic got one over on you there.
Yeah, they probably did.
Not saying it doesn't happen.
Being that it was late at night, we couldn't really do any fucking. I mean, this is before camera phones and everything else, so I mean, we didn't have the ability to do any real inspection on the vehicle ourselves. We just kind of left it at some backwoods mechanic and said, "Hey, we'll be back to pay for it the next 3-day weekend," which happened to be like, I don't know, Memorial Day or something like that.
You know, you kind of have a thing for breaking down in the backwoods of nowhere.
I do. It's weird. I really do.
I don't even think it's that weird.
It's not just like one time either. Like habitually throughout my life, I've had a lot of breakdowns, and there's no cell service. There's no one around. I'm in like the worst possible case scenario. I mean, even when I've went off-roading in my ATV or my side-by-side down there by the creek, or I took my truck down there in the same area and got it stuck. I mean, I just have a penchant for going places where nobody else happens to be.
And that's where you happen to break down, which is the funny part. It's like
it is. Oh,
like
man.
For me, I break down in like the most random places where, it's like, people shouldn't be here, but all of a sudden people are there, and it's like, okay, cool. Right? Or I break down and meet all the neighbors. So, it becomes a community thing at that point.
Yeah, there was another time my brother and actually my whole family, I was up in Ohio, and we were out at a bar. And so I was probably, I don't know, 32-ish at the time. And I had a Jeep Grand Cherokee, and I thought, it's all-wheel drive, and it's got 4-wheel drive, and I should be able to go anywhere with this thing. And I'd been drinking, so I thought, well, let's just go exploring this area where they have just cleared out all these monstrous trees and root balls and everything else, clearing it for a neighborhood expansion. And so I'm going along, and I'm like, all right, cool, I got traction, everything's cool, da 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 da. Next thing I know, I'm high-centered, this Jeep Grand Cherokee, and I'm like, oh no. Again, I am so far off the road. There's no way anyone can come and recover me. So what I do, I call my brother, and I'm like, hey, can you come and get me? And he's like, well, where are you? I was like, you know where mom and dad's are at, and they're doing that expansion in the neighborhood. He's like, yeah. I was like, I'm over there. He's like, why? I was like, well, I thought I could off-road over here and get myself back out. He's like, oh, well, I got it. And at the time, he thought he had a really tough truck. You know, he had this 1500 and he had tires on it, and that's all he had done to it. He's like, "Oh, I'll be able to get you out. I'm bigger and heavier and blah blah." I was like, "Don't drive back here, please." And he's like, "No, it'll be fine. I'll be able to get you." And he's younger than me by like 12 years, mind you. So he's got that ego going, thinking, "I'll be able to get my brother out. This will be great. Watch, I'll rescue my brother." Nope. As soon as he drives back there, he sinks to his axles. And I'm like, "Dude, I told you don't come back here." So now I have to recover 2 vehicles. So I call a family friend, and he owns a contract business doing concrete work, and he's got like dozers and all kinds of stuff. I'm like, "Hey, can you do me a favor?" And I mean, it's like 1 a.m. by now. And I'm like, "Can you do me a favor and come snatch me and my brother out of this mud hole?" He starts laughing on the phone. He's like, "Nope, you're going to have to call yourself a wrecker." And I was like, that means they're going to call the cops, because in Ohio, if you are off-road and you call for a tow, the cops get called just to make sure.
Dumb.
Yeah, I think it's just to make sure that, you know,
It's to make sure you didn't off-road in Ohio to go plant a bottom.
something. I think because a lot of people go through farm fields and stuff, and you know, you get stuck on a farmer's field and they want to press charges. So
Yeah, that doesn't happen where I'm from. You get stuck in a farmer's field, you leave the vehicle and just get your ass out of there. Because if not,
you're gonna get shot.
shot comes flying. I'm just saying, like,
Yeah. So, you know, I end up calling this wrecker, and they asked me how far off the road I'm. I'm like, "Oh, you know, like, I don't know, 50 feet." I was way more than 50 feet off the road. It was probably at least a football field away from any hardball road. And they pull out, and they're like, "You are not 20 feet off the road." And I was like, "I know, but I knew if I said anything more, you guys wouldn't come." So they backed up as far as they could. They put a chain between my brother's truck and my Jeep to snatch me out. They towed my brother out, and then proxy pulled me out. And I think that was like $500 to get us both out. At like
lesson learned right there.
like 2 or 3 in the morning by the time it was all said and done. I think
You
we
know
went
what?
home, and I think we went home at that point because the cops did come. The cops were like, "Have you been drinking?" And of course, they give us the riot act, and I was like, "Yeah, but you know, it was like hours ago, so I'm pretty sure I'm sober now." And the cop just kind of laughed, and he was like, "Look, where do you live?" And I told him, I was like, "Literally down the street." And he's like, "You live down the street?" And I was like, "Yeah." "And what were you doing over here?" I was like, "I was exploring, and I wanted to see where some of these lots were in this area because I'm thinking of buying and building here by my parents." And like, I had this whole elaborate story, and the cop was just kind of staring at me like, "I'm not buying it." I was like, "Yeah."
Dan the Explorer.
Oh man.
Are you sure you ain't related to Dora?
I don't know. I mean, I am part Hispanic, so it's possible.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I said that you said it's $500, and I said I was like, well, you know, that's an expensive lesson learned. But then I look back at with the time of how long I've known you and the things, your shenanigans and getting stuck and breaking down, that you didn't learn shit.
No, I just made more money, so now I can just do dumber shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So now I just pay for it and sit there in anguish, like,
Yeah, you
shouldn't have
deal
done
with it
that.
later. Yeah, you deal with it
Yeah.
later, and you're like, man, I shouldn't have done that. But in the moment, you're just in the moment, which
Right.
you know,
Yeah. I'm very spontaneous. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, at least that, and usually alcohol's involved. So, I mean, that should be a key factor right there. If I'm got alcohol, you probably shouldn't give me any keys to any sort of motor vehicle because I'm probably going to do something dumb.
So we know I have an affinity for old vehicles, and you pretty much have an affinity for old vehicles and muscle cars.
Mhm.
So obviously, about a month and a half ago, I purchased a 73
I was
Ford
72.
No, it's a 73.
Oh, shit.
73 Ford Ranchero 500.
Mhm.
Okay. For whatever reason, Ford decided to do a transition period. So
Oh,
you
those
can
are great for parts.
right? So you get parts like 68 to 72. And then you
Right.
get parts from like 74 to 78. And
Mhm.
it's like you're like that, you're like that kid in the orphanage, like, please, sir, may I have some more?
You are a pickle in the middle at that
Yeah,
point.
right?
Yeah.
But instead, you're like, please, sir, may I have some pots? Because
Yeah.
and then
Right.
you're trying to match because it's a Ranchero,
Yeah.
which is not an El Camino.
Uh-huh.
Ranchero is better than El Camino. Way more
I
El
wouldn't
Caminos
say
out there.
that. I think the
There's
El
way
Camino
more.
engine is definitely better.
Actually, it's a 351 Windsor, bruh.
Yeah,
so
those are pretty bulletproof engines too.
it's a good engine.
Yeah, it's hard to beat that.
But I will say, with this vehicle, mechanical woes, not necessarily, but it's also one of those things, like, there was a lot of work done to this to this vehicle. You're talking about a 50-year-old vehicle that has everything. 90% of this vehicle is original. 28,000 miles, original miles on this vehicle. 50 years old, right? But you do an engine tune-up, you redo gaskets 5 years ago, and then it stays sitting for 5 years, and it like backs out of the driveway and pulls in the driveway.
I can relate to that. I can relate to that car because I'm almost as old as that car. So if I sit for too long, I still have creaks and groans and everything. So maybe that's why I like dealing with some of these older cars, because I relate. Like, I know that it still needs some attention and work to get it going in the morning, but once it's going, it's going. You know what I mean?
And that's the thing, is like, older things, the older stuff, right? Like, if you bought, I got a couch. I know we're getting a little topic here, but I got a couch, just to give a scenario, right? For my grandparents. This couch was 20 years old when I got it. And it was like, it was almost brand new with how much my grandmother took care of it and stuff, right? You're talking a 20-plus-year-old couch, right?
Jumping on it, but
you're talking a
nefarious things on it.
20 years old in 2010, right?
Well, and they don't have a bunch of pets and stuff all over it either.
No, they had dogs. But what I'm getting at is, like, now, if you go out and you buy, like, this couch today would have cost you probably $4 or $5 grand easily.
Yeah, just because it's sturdy built. You know what I mean?
Right, because it was built right.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the couch I spent that, and it still broke, and then it's ridiculous because they put like balsa wood in these things now.
Well, yeah, if you're not wanting to pay $5, $6, $7 grand for a couch, you're going to pay $2,500 for a couch that's going to break.
That just goes back to way old cars were built. They were built to last.
Exactly, they were built out of metal, not fiberglass.
Yeah, and even the engines were built to last. I mean, everything was hand put together. Now you have machines that are putting all these things together. The processes are different. The components are cheaper. There's a lot more plastic involved, rubber. Just everything's cheaply made or imported from either China, Korea, or somewhere over there. Because they're outsourcing all that, and it's like, it helps us keep the cost down. Except for the fact of the price. The price of vehicles is going up, even though the cost of their goods is going down. And that's another topic.
But like a prime example, though, right? So, like, since we've been piddling, and I like to call it piddling because we haven't really done any like major work on this Ranchero.
Yeah.
Right. So since we've been piddling, right? So, like, I've changed out the fuel sending unit. That took me 30 minutes. I mean, it was drained. The longest part was letting the gas tank drain because I overestimated how much fuel I left. Okay.
Yeah.
But so change out the fuel sending unit, change out some bulbs, some fuses, fluid changes, a little odds and ends stuff here and there. And you're into this car. But I will say the major thing I've done so far is complete redo of brakes, new calipers, new drums, new springs, because it had to be done.
Which was interesting that you were able to drive that back from Memphis in the condition that those brakes were in. I'm surprised.
No, I towed it from Memphis.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense.
And we had to leave Rusty, remember?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I forgot about all that.
Yeah.
Because had you had to drive that thing, you would have absolutely locked those brakes up. There's no
100%.
There's no way you would have made that drive.
100% would have locked the brakes up. Right now, the fronts were compensating because of the broke springs on the drums.
Yeah.
So, what you do to one side in my opinion, and people may differ on this, but my opinion, and this goes tires, brakes, right? If it's same left and right, what you do on the left, you might as well go ahead and do on the right.
for
So
sure.
it's same.
Yeah, and I think almost any shop will tell you the same thing, especially when like for tires for sure. Because if you have uneven wear, that's going to mess your alignment up. It's going to mess all kinds of different things up with the car.
True.
And
but the shop will sell you that one tire and put that one tire.
Of course they will,
right.
Absolutely, because they know down the road you're either going to come back to them for another tire, or you're going to come back for a tire in alignment, or 2 tires in alignment.
Yep.
Depending on what happens. So
I fully believe when you go in for, we'll just say tires, right?
Mm-hmm.
You went for a tire change, right? If I am changing one tire, say it's the back, we'll say it's the front, right? If I change the front 2 tires,
which is it, the back or the front?
We'll go front.
Are we talking about women? Or are we talking about
Nope,
cars?
We're talking about cars. So let's go front tires, okay? Front tires, because this is where it can get a little interesting, right?
Yeah.
So I need 2 new front tires. Here's the question. Do I need 2 new front tires, or do the rear tires need to rotate to the front and I need 2 new rear tires?
Is this a front wheel drive or rear wheel drive car?
Boom. Thank you, sir. Key point right there. Front wheel versus rear wheel, right? If I need 2 new tires, I have to think which 2 tires currently has the most tread.
Mm-hmm.
And where is the driving force of this vehicle? Because
the way I think a lot of young people don't even get taught that. You know what I mean? That's a sad thing.
I was taught whichever is the driving force, tires go, and then the other set that has some still wear and tear left on it rotates to the what you would call, if it's a rear wheel drive, then your less treaded tires that are still good goes to your steering point, because you want most of your traction in your driving force. At least that's the way I was taught with it, right? Where it's like,
it kind of depends.
Driving and steering force,
right?
So I definitely want the tread.
There's definitely 2 trains of thought there.
There is.
Because it's all right. Well, do I want traction, or do I want to be able to steer? Which again goes towards traction, but I guess it just depends. But
well, see, I look at the traction point like this, right? So let's talk the rear wheel, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say my front 2 tires are pretty much bald, and I have a rear wheel drive vehicle, right?
Yeah.
But my current rear tires still
that's
probably have another.
If you've got, say, like you're driving an old school Mustang, you definitely want better tread in the back, because otherwise you're just driving slicks, and everybody knows how light in Mustangs are in the back.
Well,
anyway,
we're just keeping it simple, just a standard regular daily driver, right? Yeah. So what I'm getting at is, yes, I want to be able to steer, but if those tires that I'm taking off the rear to rotate to the front still have 15, 20,000 miles worth of tread left on them, I'm going to be able to steer. If I don't have traction in the back, I don't care how good I can steer, I ain't going nowhere. Or I'm slipping and sliding, and then my ass end is all over the place.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So for me, at least the way I was taught, and I understand people are taught different, and they, learn things different, right? The way I was taught, if it's a rear wheel drive, you want your newest tires on the back. If it's a front wheel drive, your newest tires better be on the front, because only thing them tires in the back are doing, they just carrying that weight in that trunk. That's all they're doing. Yeah. They just holding up that trunk, keeping that booty going.
I mean, I do that with my truck, and that's why it's so important to do tire rotations. That people don't even pay attention to that, but you typically should definitely do your tire rotations every other oil change. If not there, then do it yourself. But and tire inflation. People don't pay attention to that either, because if you have an overinflated tire, you're going to have a weird wear pattern, versus an underinflated tire, you're going to have a weird wear pattern, and these are, nice lessons that people can learn just over the haul of owning a car or truck or whatever your automobile might be.
Speaking of tire inflation.
Yeah.
We've tried multiples. Oh, me, my dad, Arnold, we've tried all kinds of different air compressors
Mhm.
and just inflating devices, right?
Yeah.
I will say, honestly, bang for buck, the most impressive the tire air inflator, compressor, whatever you want to call it,
You gotta say that Ryobi thing that you got.
bruh,
Yeah.
hands down. I mean,
I
you even
know
saw
you
how
love.
quickly
I know you love that thing.
it
Yeah,
inflated your
it does good.
tires
It
on
does
a
good.
Ply 10 tire.
Yeah, you're right. It does do good, but
Bang
I
for buck.
still, yeah, I guess if you're gonna have something that's portable, I
Yes,
would
that's what
rather
I'm getting at.
have,
Portable.
yeah, I would rather have that than like some of those janky ones that auto like stop once it gets to a certain level or whatever. That's like those
Right.
small brick inflators.
Or they hit that pressure and it's like they
and it's
just
like too
can't
much
push
back pressure. It
past.
can't push
Right.
back. Yeah. I
I mean, you're talking about a
obviously I like
handheld
to have
compressor.
a pancake compressor in the garage to do the tires, but if you're somewhere, say you're off-roading or whatever, and you want something quick and dirty, I would probably do that little Ryobi thing.
100%.
Even though I'm not a Ryobi guy, like
Agreed,
I'm a
but who
DeWalt
knows?
guy.
DeWalt
But
might come out with something
they're
that
getting,
does that.
yeah, and even I think DeWalt does have something, but
It's
DeWalt's getting cheaper made these days. Even it's not the same. Like again, like cars, they're not built the same either.
nothing's built the same nowadays.
No, I know,
Everything today is built
to break.
a break.
Yeah. Well, we definitely agree on that.
Even if you're a person that doesn't break anything, it's designed that, oh, you don't want to break? Well, I'm going to break.
What about oil changes? What is your feeling on oil changes? Do you think it's every 3,000 miles, or do you think that's a hoax that people like bought into years ago because the big petroleum business is like, hey, the more we get you to do these oil changes, the more petroleum we can sell you?
I look at it, the consistency and the coloration of the oil, how aggressive you drive, and how much you drive. So,
what about age of the engine?
Age of the engine to me plays key factor too, right?
Yeah,
now,
right.
So with this synthetic, you can push. They say 5,000 ish, right? I've had people push 7, almost 8,000, and it still be almost a honey gold color, right? But it's that's your Sunday driver. That's Ma and Pa kettle going to the farmer's market and stuff, right?
Yeah,
they're not putting any real pressure on this vehicle or this engine, right?
Yeah,
so that's
Sunday cruising,
right? It's all but they're Sunday cruising Monday through Sunday, right?
Mm-hmm.
So whereas like you drive or the way I drive, we know I drive crazy because you rode with me, but you're over there holding the old shit handle.
Sometimes, yeah, that's mostly because we're in Rusty, and I always feel like the fucking floorboard's gonna fall out. But that's a different story.
So that's where I'm getting at. Like, I feel like there's a lot of things, tire changes, all that stuff, brakes, all are dependent on the driver.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of have to know how you operate a vehicle, right? To better understand when, what key points or key stages. And there's always warning signs like brake, right? Brake, for instance, going to whine. It's got that whistle. It's got that, you'll hear that metal grinding because it's hitting that clicker and they're
or you have a weird idle,
right. Or like, I mean, yeah, I
feel like the newer cars, they intentionally fuck with the idle to force you to get an oil change. Like I think, how they have the indicators that come on now in new vehicles, and you have to do this weird sequence in order to get it to go away. I almost feel like they intentionally choke out the engine, so then you're like, oh, I gotta go get an oil change, and nobody really takes the time to pull the dipstick and look at the color of the oil.
I will see what's going on. I will say though, with that note, right? Mm-hmm. In today's culture, it's what would you? I'm breaking it down Barney style, right? I'm literally giving you no excuse at this point. I didn't know my oil need changed, right? No. The car is telling you, hey, buddy, it is time to take me in to at least have me checked.
Back in the day when people would forget and their engine would seize.
Yeah.
Because they have sludge inside their engine instead of actually any viscosity.
But back in the day, if it seized, the whole town,
an engine rebuild back then.
But then the whole town knew it seized, and they're like, "How did you not know you needed an oil change?" Right? Whereas
Billy Bob just ran that thing into the ground.
Right. Whereas today's culture is, I didn't know. right?
Well, I think that's because nobody wants to take accountability. That's another subject.
So this is a forcing function, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. But I still feel like there's, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I do feel like there's something to go on there where they know, somebody knows.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie.
It's like your phones, and all of a sudden an update comes in your phone, and then it's bricked, and you're like, oh, I guess I gotta go with the new iPhone or the new Samsung or whatever. I feel like automotive, they do this because I just had this with my other car that's in the garage and in the house here, where it's got 3G, and 3G has been phased out, and they sent out a message saying, they're like, hey, sorry, those services are no longer available to you. If you want, you can come in and pay for the upgrade to get the 5G stuff installed in your car, and that way you can continue with your remote services and everything else like that.
Do you really need Wi-Fi in your car?
I don't, but like people that do traveling business, or they have kids that are with their iPads in the back seat, or you know what I mean? Like it's some people use it more than others, and so it's like an imperative for them. But for me, it's like a non-factor. I'm just like, whatever. Like
I don't know what you mean, right? So
I know you don't, but there are bougie people out there that they need that. They need to stay connected.
So I'm picking up what you're putting down. Like I'm understanding it, but I don't get it, right? Because I'm that guy or that person that like
you're the bare minimum. Like if you can have manual windows and manual transmission and manual everything, you're all for it. Yeah, I
want power windows because I want to be able to roll down both. Yes, I want to be able to roll down both my windows without having to lean across and roll the other one down.
Oh man, I remember that back when I had that Pontiac and I had to lean across and I had to hand crank that thing down. Oh my god!
Or you lock the door
and you're like, oh no, I gotta get it back up.
Yeah. Or God forbid you lock the door. Now you gotta lean across and unlock the door.
Yeah.
So like that's like what I'm.
Well, you're gonna have to do that with that Ford that you got in the
No, if that's the case, you just make sure you have somebody in the passenger seat. Why do you think I had you in it the last time? You were able to roll it down for me, right? But and I mean, even it's like stuff like that. That's not a big deal to me. I prefer power windows because it makes it convenient for me, right? But
that's why it's called a convenience package,
right? Nowadays it's standard. But what I'm getting at is like, here's where we're talking like you give your kid the iPhone, right, or the iPad, dude. We had nothing. You played I Spy, Slug Bug. You played
although
engrossed.
When I was a kid, we would stop at the gas stations like Cracker Barrels and different places, and you would pick up like the road games.
Yes, and that's the thing. It's like electronics in a vehicle to me have just electronics in general have
just wait when you start hanging around more bougie people. I guess I'll put it that way.
You're as bougie as I get.
I know. I mean, we're almost polarized when it comes to certain things, but I mean, we're both roughnecks at the end of the day. We both like to be out in the, we're both like to be out in the woods, and we both like to get dirty. But that's we're getting diverted from things.
Yeah, we are getting diverted. But I will say, granted, if income was different, I might be a little more bougie. But truthfully, I probably wouldn't.
I was the same way even when I was a poor ass soldier. You know what I mean? Or
you know what I mean? And I'm not like I'll buy it.
I think that was something of a product. I'm a product of my environment because, like, I grew up semi-poor, and then as we got older, my parents got more money, and then so it was like I started seeing my dad driving nice Tahoes and Yukons, and then he got the Escalade, and I was like, oh, all right. Well, if the harder I work, I should reward myself and get nice things to like show, like what I've done, I earned from my effort. So.
I get that.
It comes across as being bougie because I work hard, I earn a lot, and I then spend that on the equivalent pay bracket, I guess, if you want to call it that. But I do still try to keep it a little bit humble pie on some things. But
I mean, like, I call you bougie joke.
Oh, it's true though. It's so true.
No, you are bougie in certain aspects, right?
Especially if we're talking about bourbon. I'm not going to drink anything that tastes like rubbing alcohol. Yeah.
Bro, but I mean, in comparison, I am broke compared to you. Okay, if we're talking comparison, right?
Yeah.
And I don't drink cheap bourbon.
No, that's where you spend your money. You know?
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So like I'm gonna invest in where I need it, right? Like, I mean, that's
you
just
got
how
good
it is.
dip. You know, it's not like you're out there doing Kodiak's kind of cheap.
Kodiak's actually kind of pricey nowadays.
What's the other Wolf's the other one, right?
The cheap, you know. And now they got this new one called Cougar. Ooh, you can get it for like $1.50 a can.
Everybody loves a good Cougar. You know what I'm saying?
And you know, I tried that Cougar because it's $1.50 a can. That's not the Cougar for me. Just saying.
No, it's a different story. No, it's
but
good.
talking about bougie, right?
Oh God, we're fucking way off topic, man.
No, hang on. I'm getting you here.
We're gonna circle
you back, bro. So talking about bougie, for a guy that's so bougie, you went out and you bought a Defender. Now, granted, a Defender is not a common running around vehicle. So in my opinion, your bouginess drove you to find this Defender and purchase it, right? But then once you purchased it,
I purchased that because
bougie it up.
I purchased that because it reminded me of all my deployment time. You know what I mean? And I've driven in like the Hiluxes and Defenders and different things like that you don't get here in the U.S.
Right.
And so I bought that Defender more as a reminiscent. And
that's still bougie.
Yeah, but I only paid like $25,000 for the thing. You know what I mean?
But
I knew
only.
Yeah, but I knew I was going to have to put in a lot of work because it was. First of all, that guy. This goes in lessons learned, folks. Don't buy sight unseen. Always go and look and test drive the vehicle before you purchase it. Because I didn't on this one, and I had it shipped from Utah all the way to North Carolina, and the guy swore he was going to drive it out and meet up with me and this, that, and the other. Then he backed out. And as soon as he backed out, I was like, oh, there's something going on here. And when it showed up, it looked great when it rolled off the truck after the truck driver had to jump it because it wouldn't start on its own. So I was like, all right, we have a possible battery drain issue here I have to figure out. I was like, that's not a problem. I know how to operate a multimeter. I know how to do electrical work. I can figure this out. And then it had a weird sound. So I was like, okay, we either have a vacuum problem or we have a cylinder that's messed up and fouling. I was like, oh, okay. So immediately I drive it home, I check it out, and I'm like, all right. I text the guy and I was like, look, man, I can't do this. Like, we had a contract anyway that said I could back out if there was anything that was contrary to what he had said. Like, he basically said it was like in great condition. It was not. It had electrical problems. It had mechanical problems. It had structural problems. It had all kinds of problems that you would associate with a 30-year-old vehicle that somebody neglected. As a normal Defender
floorboard.
Yeah, I know. It was ridiculous. I had to replace the floorboard. I had to replace the seat box. I couldn't even get the tires off because they had some weird key on the tires that nobody had. I even called places in the UK asking them, like, hey, I even took a picture of it and I was like, do you have this keyway anywhere? And they're like, no. I was like, oh my God, it's this 30-year-old keyway that nobody actually has. So I couldn't even get the tires off to even assess the hubs, the brakes, anything else that was going on, like with that part of the vehicle. So that's basically why I got rid of it, because I was just like, I'm not dealing with all this. I had already spent like $5,000 in parts and everything else trying to get it to where I wanted it. So when I offloaded it, I took a bath on it. I mean, I sold it for like $20,000 cash. The guy showed up and was like, he was like, here's $20,000 cash. You gonna take it? I was like, yeah, I'll take it.
I'm not gonna lie though, the Defender was sexy.
Dude, that thing was badass. You know what I mean? Like, it was
roading and everything, right?
Yeah. That thing literally would go through anything. I took it where my truck got stuck and it had no problems. Like, it went through it like it was just driving on hard pavement.
Which brings me to, we should go pick up the Cherokee that's on the property, come back, tear the doors off, just put, frame doors.
Oh God, we got to figure out. Is it even working? Does it even drive?
It was a wiring issue.
Oh, that's easy. We just get a new harness.
It's a wiring harness, right?
Yeah.
But once it's rolling, like it had a brand new alternator, all this stuff put in it, right?
We should go get that. That'd be fun. That'd be a fun weekend project.
Right. You tear the doors off and just put some bars or something in the way, right? So you don't just fall out.
Don't even put anything on it.
No, you put something there so you don't just fall out. You'd
be fine.
You would fall out.
No, you'd fall out.
We would just fall out at some point. I'm just saying.
So you put in where the water that we like, that creek that we go into, I'd probably just jump out in the water just to be.
But I'm saying, like, we could do our own PVC snorkel. You know, you could just get creative with it because
I don't know.
Whatever.
I would just buy an aftermarket one. I wouldn't do something.
Because people, this is where the bouginess comes in.
I know.
I would just buy a PVC pipe that could take up high heat.
Get a spray paint it black so it doesn't look like.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Spray paint on it with stencil called down periscope. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We go full on, you know.
Mm-hmm. That'll be interesting. It'll be wild.
But the mechanical woes are interesting with these older vehicles.
Yeah, it really is. You know.
I'll
tell you one thing though. With mechanical woes, my truck it's new, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like, what is it, 2021? Yeah, it's 2021. And it doesn't do well against metal poles. I'll tell you that.
Or deer, for that matter.
Yeah. I literally just got home from a deployment, and I was probably 3 days home, and I was driving back from the bar, of course, and next thing I know, I see a deer, and I clipped the deer, and as I clipped the deer, and I end up hitting a metal pole, which just annihilated the side of my truck. It was just complete destruction.
You're driving back from a date?
Yeah, I was on a date.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, you gotta go get your wick wet, you know?
Right, you know, and you didn't get your wick wet that night.
No, I didn't, but I definitely wet my whistle because I was drinking.
Right? You know?
So, it was interesting because then I had to drop that thing off, and it took them months to fix it
then they didn't even fix it right because we walked down, and this is what I thought was hilarious.
That's another lesson learned is you gotta pick and choose where you drop your vehicle off to be fixed, because some of these places it's funny because these insurance companies say, oh, well, it's a preferred place. I'm like, why is it preferred? Oh, because it's the lowest bid, just like the military. Military does this where they will take the lowest bid contract and you get what you pay for. And insurance companies, 9 times out of 10, are trying to get it on the cheapest they can. And it shows in the work every single time. I still have to take. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no. Go ahead and finish your sentence.
I still have to take it back to those knuckleheads because there's paint areas that they have to fix. And
they screwed up your bed liner.
They screwed up my bed liner. So I have to take it back to the place that did the Line-X and ask them, like, hey, can you fix this? And then you just bill those knuckleheads for damaging it? Because I'm not paying for that. I didn't damage it. Your mic's cutting out again.
I said I'm going to say this because I transitioned, and I transitioned from.
Are you transgender? Is that what you just said?
Can I finish? I knew that was coming. I knew that was coming. Okay, no pun intended, or maybe pun was intended. But what I'm getting at is I was transitioning from the bird dog.
Are cool.
Right? Well, you're gonna. So, I was transitioning from the bird dog to the leatherwood, right?
Oh, man. I'm almost done with this Basil Hayden, by the way.
So there was enough. Well, I've been transitioned to the leatherwood for a minute. Yeah. But what I'm noticing is there was enough bird dog because I had about half a glass of bird dog, right? Mm-hmm. There was enough bird dog to dull the senses for the leatherwood.
Uh-huh.
Because I recall.
Make it tolerable?
Yes, because I recall us taste testing the leatherwood, and it was a little too, there was too much of a bite, in my opinion, for a bourbon.
No, it's true. It's true, because like that one Leatherwood one that we did, that's the 5th group edition, limited
The
edition.
special limited edition.
Yeah, that one
I
is
would-
smooth.
That's like drinking water.
No, I don't
Like
see water.
so I don't know how to.
Because
I don't
water
know
has
how
no
to-
taste.
But see, that's the thing is I don't. It's like so smooth. Actually, you know what? It's so smooth. It's like silk, right? Like we set with that one bottle for a night.
I know, me,
Not
you,
even
and
a
Arnold.
night.
Yeah,
Like
that was
for
good.
2 hours.
That
The
was a good
3
time.
of us consumed that bottle.
I was hammered that night.
So fast.
Yeah.
It was so smooth.
Didn't we do a Basil Hayden that night too?
We started at a Basil Hayden, and I'm like, no, we're breaking this bottle out.
Yeah. Yeah, I knew.
Right.
I knew we had to start
Because we started the
Basil's
Basil
like one
Hayden.
of my favorite ones
It
to
was,
like just sip on.
Was it the roasted Basil Hayden?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was that one.
And then
Yeah.
I was like, no, we're doing this because I literally bought 2 bottles for myself, one for you, one for Dad. Like,
Yeah.
I bought this one for us to actually try. We broke the seal on. Wish I'd have bought 20 more, or a case, or a truckload. Because in my opinion, that is probably one of the best tasting bourbons I have had, and I've had a lot of bourbon. You have too.
Mm-hmm.
But that was so smooth.
Yeah. We're definitely gonna have to do something about your mic, though.
Yeah, we're gonna have to.
Yeah.
That was so smooth.
Yeah. So we're supposed to be sticking on cars and.
But what gets me to that, right?
Issues.
So here we go. Lesson learned on paid more for this Leatherwood Snake Eater bourbon. Paid like $45 or $50. I think I paid about $40 or $45 for this bottle, right? I paid $30 for my special edition bottle.
And that's better.
Lesson learned on that, right?
Oh.
Paying more doesn't make it better. So,
no. What's that one that I introduced you to years ago? That you really like? That now is expensive?
Wilderness Trail.
Yeah, Wilderness Trail. We gotta get some more of that because that stuff is really good.
That's the thing. Popularity can make things skyrocket. So, right when you go out to buy a vehicle, keep in mind what you're going to look for, right? Is this a very popular vehicle? Is this something that's sought after, right? All these things, because if it's a super popular vehicle, a super popular model, year.
Did you say popular?
I did. I'm slightly slurring my words right now. Right? So if it's super popular, if it's a sought after model, a sought after year, because for instance, Corvette had a good gap there where their cars were not sought after.
Yeah, it was like mid 90s.
Right? It just wasn't
late
sought
80s.
after.
Yeah, they were
like some of these cars you can go out and buy for anywhere from $8,000 to $15,000. But then other ones, it's like, no. You're going to break out the big money on this one, right? Well, so those are big factors when you go.
Especially if they were a limited run. You know, kind of like they do the same thing with like alcohol. You got a limited run alcohol, and next thing you know, you're paying $4,000 like Pappy Van Winkle. You know, it's like good luck. You're gonna pay $10,000 for a bottle of Pappy. Hope you're ready.
And then on top of that, is it worth it? Right. So that's the thing that's factor in when you're buying that vehicle.
Well, and we can talk about bourbon, and we can talk about Scotch on another episode, and I would tell you how much. Like Johnny Walker Blue is not worth it, but Johnny Walker Green is.
But see, this is what I'm getting at, right? For instance, like here it is. When you're going to purchase said vehicle, right? And this is what gets people. Emotion has to de-evolve, has to become uninvolved.
Well, you got to figure every time somebody's buying a vehicle, there's intrinsic value. And then intrinsic value is what the salespeople are hoping for. Because if you walk in there and you're all the eyes are lit up and you're like, oh, this is the perfect vehicle for me and this is what I've been looking for. They're like, gotcha. And that's the same thing in the car market. You go out there and they're like, all right, well, everyone wants a 57 Chevy, so we're just going to price these things binoculars, bonkers.
I'm
And
slurring, and you're coming up with your own words.
yeah, it's fine. Binoculars is a word. It's just
It
not
is a
the
word.
right
It
word.
just does not fit
Yeah,
into
no,
that
it just doesn't
category at
fit.
all.
All right, yeah. So
what
that's
you
the best part about being bourbon sauced is that at some point we get to the point where we're incoherent and we're rambling and it just gets a lot more fun. But
But that's the key point here. Is like that's why I'm saying you have to get in a mindset like this is the vehicle you want, right? Do
yep.
you do your little happy dance at home and all your
Mm-hmm.
excitedness, get it out at the house because when you go to deal, you're
Oh
there
yeah.
to deal to
Yeah, and that's
right.
people don't know how to do that. They don't well, I can't say people, but most people don't know how to delineate and
Oh,
hold back. Yeah.
nowadays, absolutely not, right? Like, I mean, come on,
There's
like you've got
instant gratification is so rampant.
like up north, right? Up
Yeah.
north, Maine, and stuff like that, right? They call it dickering, right? Down here, we call it
Dickering.
barter trading, right?
Who calls it dickering? I've never heard that term.
Actually, east around Maine and stuff, they've got a catalog called like something dickering.
Yeah.
Literally dickering. They're trading and bartering, right? So down here in the south, like we're trading, we're bartering, right? I would much rather wheel and deal with you all day long and go, and come up to trading things, right? Just because I enjoy that, right? It's the game. It's the having fun with it, right? But most people nowadays they're just like, oh my god, I want that so much. How
Well,
much is it?
yeah.
And then you're like,
They
you
don't know how
want it
to they
this
don't know how
bad?
to yeah.
Yeah, like I was pricing it for $1,000.
Yeah.
Apparently, you didn't read the price and you want it really bad, so now it's $4,000, right?
Mhm.
You
I
just
know what
pull
I
a
got.
number, right? You pull a number, and it's like, but you said this. I was like, that's before I found out that you were in love with it.
Yeah, it's like
So
people that are selling pallets of wood. I know what I got. You're gonna give me $10 a pallet, bro. I can go back to Sam's Club and pick up pallets for free. So they just got to be careful. Some of these
yeah,
people with cars are going to overinflate the value of their vehicle because they see you coming. That's the term that even salespeople use. We see you coming because you're a sucker. You've got it printed across your forehead, and they know we got this guy because like somebody like me or you, we walk in and we're just talking to these dealerships and we're like, nah, I'm not going to pay that. I'm like, what do you mean you're not going to pay that? No, I'm not going to pay sticker price. Well, why not? Because I know that is an overinflated value for that vehicle. That vehicle is not worth what you have it listed for. It's not even worth the MSRP that you guys have it listed for. So,
MSRP is complete bullshit.
oh yeah, it's garbage these days, especially now. I mean, you can't. A truck is not $90,000. It doesn't. They don't have $90,000 in that truck.
So here's my question though: how do you list MS? Right? So you say MSRP 90 grand, and then the
Mhm.
truck's for sale for 70. Or you
The
list the
markup, that's
camper
dealership
for
markup too, right? So
right, but like you
you
list
look
the
at that
truck
when
for
they pick
90
up the.
grand
Mhm.
MSRP, right? And
Yep.
you're selling it list for 70, right? Or
Well,
a
the
camper.
MSRP is it's the abbreviation for manufacturer's suggested retail
Correct,
price. It's
correct, right?
suggested, right? So they're
Right.
suggesting the dealerships listed at least at that price because they know that they will recoup some sort of cost and get a little bit of profit,
Or like a
right?
camper, right? A camper.
Oh man, those are so
MSRP,
overpriced.
let's say its MSRP is 110 grand for a toy hauler, right?
Yeah.
And then
Oh
all of
yeah.
a sudden the camping world or
Oh,
Day
the crisis happened in
Brothers,
2020, and everybody's
it's
like, "Oh my
it's like,
god, I
this
gotta go off grid. I need a camper."
right, but we're saying
Supply
they
demand, supply
MSRP
demand, man.
120 grand, but their sticker price is 70
Mhm.
grand. Like, how do you go from MSRP here to sticker price here,
Supply and demand. That is
right?
the biggest determinant. Is
And
supply
because
demand.
demand, I guess, dropped, or you're in a region where demand is not that high.
Yeah, it just depends. Because you'll see that too with people that buy cars or campers or homes or whatever. They will regionally look and see where the hot zones are and avoid that if they're buying. They'll find the dead zones because those prices are lower. And then hope that those areas are going to get hot to then resale. Same with like housing market. It's insane right now because Tennessee, it's a hot zone. Everybody's trying to get to Tennessee, so the property values are overinflated.
You know what's funny on this MSRP thing, right?
Yeah.
So let's say I drive down 48 here towards Dixon, right?
Mm-hmm.
We drove by there. We even stopped in and looked at their car lot.
Yep.
That what was it? Highway 48 Motorsports,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I'm like a kid in a candy store jumping up and down outside of the truck, like telling you to get out of the vehicle and come look.
Yeah, it's across.
Like,
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
The first car lot I've been to where they are priced and being
they
like
are reasonable.
It's
they
like,
reasonable.
Why am I trying to rob you? Right?
No,
like,
they're just trying to turn a buck, but it's like
turn a buck,
trying to turn $1,000.
Bring in a business, right?
Yeah.
Like how many times have we drove by there?
There's a difference between mom and pop places and big box stores.
Not all mom and pop. Now, and so this is where
I think in general,
I agree. That is the difference between mom and pop and
because
big
they
box
don't have
store.
the overhead that
because
they're paying
for. if you are a
think about it, that place probably has like 1 or 2 salespeople that they're paying. You go into a dealership and they're paying 30 dudes or 30 people, 30 guys, girls, whatever you are.
Absolutely.
Transmission fluid, whatever you are.
Yeah.
But that's the difference. They have to pay all those people, so their price point is going to be higher to compensate for that.
Well,
so if you're a business and you're trying to make money, you have to do that.
Agreed. But what I was getting at, is you have mom and pop and you have big business, and then you have the sleazoids, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh,
those
buy here, pay here. Oh,
no, don't give me. No,
don't
hang
ever
on,
do that. If you are looking to buy a car, and I would advocate to never buy at those places because they are going to get you. They're going to get you. They're going to put you at like a 27% interest rate.
Well, that's where I'm bringing it back.
Hammer you.
That's where I'm bringing it back, right? Like, let's say, so you do have some of those mom and pops that are buy here, pay here, right? But they don't rake you over the coals.
Those are so rare,
right? Those are rare. Those are rare, but they are there.
Small town rare.
Exactly. But like this Highway 48 Motorsports blew my mind, right? On the prices of these vehicles and the years of these vehicles, especially looking at diesel trucks. But that explains why literally week after week we drive by there and their inventory has turned almost completely over each week.
Yes, but you also have to think the people they're selling to oftentimes are the local farmers because like that area, there's a lot of farms, there's a lot of tree farms, there's a lot of milling, there's a lot of different things that are going on where they need those for short shots or whatever that they're doing.
Right. And that's like a business, like once, if things are turning for my timber business or for my log home, our log home business or the CNC business later on, right? That's a business I'm going to buy my trucks to haul stuff left and right.
Yeah, because then once you put the miles on, you just offload it somewhere else.
Right. But
those are good lessons learned too.
Definitely lessons learned right there. And then like, for instance, right now with the 73 Ranchero, we've got that high heat, and you know what?
I'm telling you, I think that is a piston. It's got a ring that's slipped or something that's rubbing on that inside of the engine.
And you very well could be right, but it is the top left side of the engine.
It's only the top left side.
And it's got that rubber burning smell.
Swear to God, I think there's something going on.
And you even get a little smoke coming out of the engine through the breather, right?
The friction that's going on, something's about to catch on fire in that thing.
I agree. I'm not disagreeing.
You're going to have an engine fire, and I'm going to be like, I told you. You better start carrying a fire hydrant with you.
No, you just might as well build that in building the way you want it with homeowners, okay?
Yeah.
Anyways, so, it's better than the way it is, just saying.
Yeah, it is better than what it was.
Right? So, but what I'm getting at is so we have that top end. So, I don't know. Comments on Spotify? Can you post comments on Spotify?
No.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, see what people thought about that top engine burn. But yeah, we can wrap this up, okay?
I don't
Wrap
think they. I
your
don't think.
rascal.
What?
Wrap your rascal.
Pure rascal.
You know? Wrap
Listen,
your
we're getting
rascal.
saucy here on bourbon sauce.
Who's getting saucy?
It's been good. It's been a good topic. Talking about cars, talking about our specific cars, and talking about things that we want to do going forward.
I got a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Your dream car or truck?
Oh, my dream car? Man.
You got to end on a high note, bro.
All right. My dream car would probably...
I'll go first.
Okay, go ahead.
Give you time to process.
I already know what yours is going to be. It's going to be like a Ford F-100.
You're dead right. Ford F-100, okay? But we're going to go 54 or 55 Ford F-100 step-side pickup. That's
You're going to have a straight 6 in there or a 4-banger?
Straight 6.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's it. That is it. That is dream vehicle.
You know, we're going to go off on another tangent.
What's yours?
You know, I go back and forth, but I think a 62 Corvette.
62 Corvette.
Yeah, 62 Corvette. I think is the one that I really want. Let me Google that real quick.
You gonna be riding with Private Malone? But his was the 66, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, 62 Corvette's the one I want. They have one right now in Nashville.
And what do you go back and forth on? So what's the other one?
You know what they want for this one that's in Nashville?
I don't even care. What's the other thing?
They want $162,000.
And it's probably worth it. So what's the other thing you go back and forth on?
A 911.
You could have got a 911 20 times over after this last trip.
I know, but I try to be practical with some of my purchases, right? Because I do have a baby mama, and I do have to pay child support, and I do have to, all those normal things, right?
Right.
And I do have a house and mortgage and bills. So I try to be a little bit practical and pragmatic. Right. But if all things lined up and I didn't have to give a shit about what I'm paying on, I would buy a brand new 911 GT3 and have it completely decked out with the seats that fit me, because I don't want the super sport seats where it's like for a dude that's 5'2".
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm a big dude. You know, I'm not like Goldberg big or, any super athlete big, but I'm 6 feet tall and I'm a wide build dude. So I can't sit in these tiny ass seats. So I need something that can support me. And I can't sit in some of these 911 seats because they're made for 5'2" dudes that are compensating. Right. You know what I mean? I just want it because I like the car. I like the design. I literally like a 1995, 96 style because I like the way the taillights are. I like the way that it's sleek, especially if it's turbocharged. Oh, it sounds so beautiful. That exhaust. Oh my God! You just hear it coming down the road.
Right, it's like a vibrator.
Yeah, I mean, I had the Corvette and everything else. You have a girl and she likes that, and you're like,
right,
hey, what's up?
Right.
But anyway, I had the Corvette, so it's like, I checked little boxes off of my life, and I think a 911 would be one of those things. A Lamborghini Aventador or a 458 Italia would be another one that would be on the list. I don't think I would ever want. I don't think I want a super exotics like the.
I don't ever say this to you. Okay. Yeah. Drunk Matt has come up with a process and a possible idea for you.
For what? How to get those?
For it all.
Oh, okay.
Hey, you have not heard me come up with hardly any drunk ideas. Normally, it's Drunk Dan's ideas.
Yeah,
and
Drunk Dan comes up with amazing ideas.
And
this is where the podcast originated, was a Drunk Dan idea. Yeah.
And I normally was Matt or Ryan, sober Ryan, taking action upon Drunk Dan to enforce the idea.
Yeah, and that's I think that's a good thing about our friendship is that you definitely help. If I have an idea, you definitely help me like see it to fruition. You know,
And
which
I
is
have an idea,
oh god,
which is very rare.
I'm not buying a fucking Ferrari.
Nope, don't need you to buy shit right now.
Yeah,
But
that'll be funny when we start going to video and like people see and we start incorporating different things.
yeah,
They're gonna be like, "Oh, what the fuck?" Like,
yeah.
"Oh, all right."
But
Oh,
no,
all
like I
right. These guys
legit,
are crazy. Okay,
I have
like
legit
look at
come
the
up.
background in these guys. These guys are nuts.
You have helped me formulate a major idea
Mm.
between you and the Waverly property.
Oh, that one's gonna be a good idea. I'm telling you, that's a good idea.
No, I'm
That
not even
one is
talking
not.
Waverly.
That one's not a drunk idea, by the way. That was a sober idea.
I'm having a drunk idea based on Waverly and
Oh,
based
we
on
can
your
start our own
Ferrari.
campground. We start our own
You've
campground.
got 11 acres for sale, right? Road front fucking property.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's not bad.
Dirt, literally right down the street.
Yeah.
Dirt work is required, but you can get it cheap via Arnold.
Oh, you talking about that place down there by that barbecue spot?
No, I'm talking about the fucking place right down here by the creek that's for sale.
Oh, down there in the flat. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. They
Between
want
all-
too much for that, though.
I understand. That's why you
I'm not paying them.
contact. No,
Yeah, I'm not paying
stop.
them.
That's what we can go ahead and kill this, and then
Yeah.
I'll come down and just talk to you.
Yeah, we can talk another time. But listen, ladies and gentlemen, or fools and folks and drunks, or whatever you
Hold
want to
up.
be
Give it a
called.
pause. Give it a pause so we can draw out some break in between and then do
I
the
can't
ending.
give it a pause. I have to
No.
delete
I'm
this
saying
section now.
what I'm saying is we can stop talking. Give it a pause in the sound, so you have a gap to actually cut.
No. Okay. Well, we'll give it a 5-second pause then.
Okay, starting now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was the episode. We hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, like, subscribe, add this on to your favorites, whatever it is that you do on these social media platforms. We'll be back next week, hopefully with all three of us, because this week we were down one. But we did our best, and we still got sauce. And hopefully you did too. And if you didn't, well, that's your own problem. We'll see you next week. Love you guys. Bye.
Cheers. I think we should end with cheers.
We could do cheers. We do bye. Whatever.
I think we should all end with cheers because we're drinking.
Fine.
So
Pause.
3, 2, 1.
Thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed the episode. We all got sauced, and it was a good time. Hopefully you'll join us on the next episode. God damn it. I forgot. What was I gonna say? This is why I need scripts.
So beginning, ending, scripted, followed by cheers from all of us.
Okay.
Because you're we're all drinking.
Let's go with that. Let's go with that.
Cheers.
We'll go cheers from all of us, and then you'll do
So
cheers.
let's go.
I'll say
let's
cheers.
go.
Elliott will say cheers.
Look, let's go 3, 2, 1, and then me and you will say cheers. Okay.
Yep.
And actually, I'm going to come to your microphone.
No. What I'll do is I'll say.
You've already said it. You've already done your ending.
Okay.
You already did your ending previous to this one, so we'll
That's
cut
true,
to
and I can cut all the other bullshit out.
Exactly. I'm coming to
right.
you for cheers so they can hear the glass clink.
Oh, yeah, that's good. All right.
Exactly.
All
So,
right, let's do that.
but what I'm getting at is like,
Yep. No, we'll do that. That's fine.
We will.
I can edit all this bullshit out.
Yes, but there is a gap between what we were talking and the ending where we just dropped off. So we may have to listen and add something in there.
Oh, we'll figure it out.
But I'm gonna go. I'm gonna ahead and cut out.
We'll
now.
do the clink,
Yes.
and then we'll do the cheers.
I'm gonna go ahead and back out.
All right, Matt. One, 2, 3. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you for joining us.
Period.